Planets in Stellaris are the backbone of your economy, and a lot of you aren't utilizing them properly. And even I didn't for so long until I used these 15 tips. We'll be starting from the very basics and working our way to the more advanced that even some of the most experienced players aren't doing. Firstly, these tips may be pointless if you don't understand how to work your jobs or even what jobs represent. Just because you have built a job doesn't mean it will be worked. Pops or population are necessary to fill these jobs, and therefore pops are the most valuable resource in the game. A lot of tips will utilize this fact, and the essence to almost every tip is efficiently using your pops. You're going to want to come over to your planet. There is a lot going on this screen, but I'll break it down to the most essential parts that you need. Firstly, we have stability. When it's positive, it will increase resources from jobs, trade value, immigration pull, etc. It's a good thing. When negative, it will do the opposite. So try and always keep this just above 50%, as working jobs is always almost better than trying to maximize stability, but you really don't want to be negative to lose resource job. We then have the population on this planet. Then we have crime. This number, you always want to keep this number below 30%. The reason being, crime-related events only happen at 30% or more. So you don't actually always need to work an enforcer, as they mainly only reduce crime. We then have housing, which you always want housing for your pops. Amenities. This affects the happiness of your pops, which then affects stability, which very simplified means more amenities means more stability. We then have available jobs and any unemployment. Now the absolute bare bones are out the way, let's get into some more advanced tips. In this planet screen, we can come over to population. This is where the magic can happen, as you saw previously. Usually pops work the jobs the game thinks that it should. It uses a bunch of factors behind the scenes, but I won't bore you with that. This is okay for a newer player, but as a human, we're all human, right? What was I saying? Oh yes, we can optimize which jobs get worked. Like I mentioned earlier, stability doesn't need to be maxed out. We're at 77 here. So because we have minor jobs available, we want to work those. We can reduce the clerk jobs by clicking on the worker tab and then clicking negative on job priority. This will stop anything working these jobs, and we're still above on stability, and we're actually at 69. Nice. This is semi due to prosperous unification, but it still applies. This just results in an overall increase of resources, because working these clerk jobs doesn't increase the stability where we're getting more bonus resources. If you did want to delve into the pluses and minuses, you can just click favorite and it will just work the mineral jobs, and luckily it takes it away from the clerk. This is a much more noticeable for gestalts. I mean, look at this. Why are they working 12 maintenance drone jobs? We have loads of jobs spare elsewhere, and when you start building up the planet too, they will just stay in the maintenance drone job. It's very nice. The next few tips will be utilizing the guaranteed hub world setting. Usually by default this is at 2. That's what I'll be assuming. Now, assuming you've watched my previous videos, you would have rushed to colonize your guaranteed habitable worlds that are close to your capital. But what do we do with these? Stellaris has so many builds, so I can't tell you the exact steps on what you need to do, but I can give you some logic that goes behind the decision making, so then you can apply that to any build you're doing. Firstly, the guaranteed habitable world will be your preference. So we started with a capital world as a continental, the guaranteed worlds a continental. This leads to a tip that actually applies to the empire creation, as each class of planet actually has a bias to what districts they spawn. This is due to the features that are linked to each planet class, but essentially drier worlds will be more likely to spawn energy districts, wet worlds, food districts, and frozen mineral. This isn't 100% guaranteed, you're just putting the odds more in your favor. The next tip is super easy and effective. It's hitting that subscribe button, as a lot of you aren't subscribed, and that means you're missing out on the gameplay where I use these tips in practice, as well as any new guides and streams that I do. It's much appreciated, and at 40k subs, I'm going to try and get every achievement in Stellaris. It's going to be painful. Just subscribe. Okay, so what do we make the planets into? We'll look at why we want to dedicate planets to a specific resource later, but for now, we'll look at how you decide what to specialize a planet into. It's kind of chicken and egg. I need to start somewhere. Firstly, I look at any planetary modifiers, like lush. This is giving habitability, food from jobs, and agricultural district. This could mean this planet could be an amazing food world, even though you'll find out later food worlds aren't really needed. But say this was for minerals, alloys, or energy, perfect energy or mineral world. You can also look at the planet size. This planet here is a 15, and this one's a 24. City districts and industrial districts can build up to this 24 planet size, whereas energy, mining, and agricultural are linked to the features resources that are found on the planet. Massive worlds usually make very good industrial worlds. However, sometimes the smaller world, like this one, just sucks for everything else. So that's when we look at the available districts for energy and minerals. I would make this colony into a mineral district. Even though it does have lush, we'd need minerals way more early game. And then this other world into alloys or consumer goods, whatever is needed. This means our capital I would actually turn into a generator world, as this is usually very balanced, so we can use our capital to pick whatever resource we didn't get from the other planet. And obviously we'll be spamming this with research as much as we can as well. So to recap, this would be energy and research, this one would be alloys or consumer goods, and this would be minerals. Then you can use the system in place for any future planets that you might find. You can also use the fact that, I mean, you have resource bars up here. If you need minerals, you might need to turn this planet, for example, into minerals. Now, the reason I said about food is because hydroponic bays are just so incredible. They're a T1 techs, you get it early game, and if you see it, you should 100% research it. They have a base cost of 50 alloys. They have production of 10 base food and 1 base upkeep. This means even if you didn't need food and sold it, you're making a profit. What I then do once my empire is sustained based on purely hydroponic bays, you want to just build them in every star base you have, you can remove the food districts from your capital into energy for this example. Hydroponic bays are also insane because they don't use pops to produce a resource. There's not many things that do this, making it very strong. You're basically shifting your food production to hydroponic bays. The pops that worked food into energy or minerals, you're just getting more resource. If you're producing way more than you need, just sell them too. Another insane building is the Hollow Theater. Yes, I know, that sounds weird, but hear me out. The Hollow Theater provides 2 entertainer jobs. It has an upkeep of 2 in energy. The jobs have a consumer good upkeep, but they produce unity and amenities. Unity is very small. We're building this for amenity. When you have large planets, which I'll load into a game that has one of those. So we've come over to another game. We have an industrial world here. And as you can see, we have Hollow Theater, which we built first. And we're literally only working 1 entertainer, and it's giving us all the amenities we need. We're below prime. We have just above 50% stability, and we're working as many alloy jobs as we possibly can. And we don't have to work clerk. Clerks only produce 3 amenities as well, whereas the entertainers produce 10 amenities. So you're getting way more value for amenities. Build Hollow Theaters in every planet. Literally every single one will have one when they're gotten to the point where they need amenities. This one doesn't, which means I should probably build a Hollow Theater next. Okay, let's answer that question from a few tips ago. Why do these planets need to be specialized? That's because there are many things you can do to buff up a certain resource production on a planet. However, if you tried to buff every resource on every planet, you wouldn't be able to, and it would cost you a lot. The first thing you can do is come on over to designations, which is here. There is one for practically every resource, and most buff the output. So on our mining world here, we have mining world, which gives us 25% output. On factory and forge worlds, uniquely factory worlds and forge world designations shift all of the jobs into that certain type, and they give a big decrease in upkeep, which saves you on minerals. Industrial doesn't give the same amount, so I would always try and use a forge world and a factory world. You can also ascend the planet, which increases the planetary designation effect by 25%, which is great for late game. Next, you have the resource buffing buildings, which exists for practically every resource in the game too. The base is not too bad. It doesn't cost that much, and it just gives a increase to the production. Now here we have an example planet, so don't build every single one. But as you can see here with the minerals, we are getting +1 mineral from miners, energy +1 energy, maybe bonus in production, or nothing when it comes down to alloys and consumer goods. When you upgrade them, you actually get more alloys, but more upkeep. All the upgrades cost rare resources, which are quite rare. So this is why you want to only build one on the planet that's doing that thing, because they also have an upkeep, which is quite expensive. 1 motes, 2 rare crystals, for example, per month. You want to try and contain them to 1 planet. These are always a must to build, as they can really help your output. Next tip is orbital rings. These are extremely powerful, but to actually get the benefits, you need to upgrade to a tier 2 ring, which requires a planet capital, which needs 25 pop. Once you have that though, you can upgrade it to a tier 2 ring, and you get even more buffing resource buildings. This is also why you want to just make 1 resource. Not sure if the point's gotten across, but on Smuggler's Surf here, it's an alloy world, so we're going to buff alloys. For alloy processing facilities, we'll get 1 more alloy per job. We can also upgrade the mega plant into a nano plant. We've almost doubled the production here by just building those two things. Gone from 120 to 220 alloys a month. That is insane. And we're not done there. Well, leaders are also incredibly strong. An officer will buffer all resources by 2% on a planet per level, and then if they're in the capital of the sector, will propagate those buffs by 1% to each planet in that sector if they don't have a leader. Scientists will do the same, but for research from jobs, and commanders are a bit wacky. There really isn't much use for them unless you're in really niche scenarios, which is mainly if you're a warmonger and have lots of slaves. This can help. I would always recommend having someone in your sector capital. This means the buffs can propagate down. For example, in Moonlight Mooring, we don't have a leader, so both of these planets aren't getting any buffs. We can come on over and just hire an officer. So now they're going to be getting more resources from jobs, just making them a bit more efficient. These leveling buffs don't seem as strong. They will add up. The strong thing is combining this with traits. You have to get lucky, as some of these just aren't good. But sometimes you can get trade bonuses, or when you reach veteran level, you can get more specialist output, maybe more rare resource output, and this goes on. You can get more minerals, etc. You can pair these traits the planet, moving them around, just really buffing up these planets to make insane efficient planet your empire. And if you wanted to go one step further, you could create a template of your pop, remove and maybe add traits to make, say, the science human, which then once you've made the template, you can apply this template but only to your science world, which in my case is just on Earth. You can do this for each resource, and depending what ascension paths you go to go down, you get more options to customize your pops. This results in insane stonks. And finally, remember edicts. Capacity subsidies is one of the strongest ones, giving technician output for a little bit of upkeep, but this just pays for itself. You can do this with minerals, farming, industrial, forge, research, whatever your empire is trying to accomplish, you can get a bit more output. Sometimes these guides don't let me go into massive detail for specific builds. That's why I made a video purely focusing on machine empires, which you can watch by clicking here.